Welcome everybody to the first edition of The Other 99. I'm Karsten Perry, and today we will be looking at a deck tech for Azusa Lost But Seeking. This deck was built by my friend Brian Manriquez and is a really rough deck to battle against. Hope you enjoy. Let's take a look at the general. Azusa is a legendary human monk for 1 green and 2 colorless, and she reads, you may play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. As you can probably guess, this deck looks to find ways to abuse this effect in any way it can. So let's look at the other 99. We will look at first the lands, the creatures, spells, the card interactions, how the deck plays, and the strengths and weaknesses of the deck. This particular deck runs a whopping total of 48 lands, 36 of which are forests. It may seem boring, but basic lands are the backbone for this deck's mana base. Dryad Arbor is a dude that can be searched up with Green Sun Zenith for turn 2 Azusa plays. Dust Bowl is reusable land destruction, while High Market and Myron Moaning Well keep sacrifice outlets open just in case your green creatures run into a wrath effect. Eye of Ugin is a great way to pull out useful colorless creatures out of the hefty 100 card stack. People love to kill fatties as fast as possible, so giving that fatty haste is fantastic. Thus, Hall of the Bandit Lord earns its slot. Maze of Ith comes in handy when you just can't take care of every creature in the field. Even though you'll be giving your opponents free draws, it's important you don't run out of steam, so Mikokoro does a great job in the drawing department. Petrified Field allows for some land recursion, while Tranquil Thicket is a pretty good card to get back with Petrified Field, or with Life from the Loam, which we will discuss here in a minute. Playing creatures at instant speed is always useful in EDH, and so Winding Canyons is an undeniably fantastic land in this deck. Now onto the exciting stuff, the creatures. This deck runs fewer creatures than most would expect at a solid 18. Sakura Tribelder, Viridian Emissary, and Seed Guide Ash are all great for mana ramps so you can get some big guys out early. Eternal Witness is an original green staple and amazing utility. Acidic Slime plays its role as a utility man and takes care of a host of cards for you. Green is lacking spot removal, but Duplicate helps us out a little bit and can be tutored with Eye of Ugin. Loaming Shaman doubles as graveyard hate and a way to recycle your own threats. But now it's time for some of the power creatures of this deck. Oracle of Moldiah is arguably the best creature in this deck. Just think about it for a second. Oracle plus Azusa equals a potential 4 lands that you would have drawn into anyway, and they all come into play untapped. Wow. And with all the lands that you run in this deck, it's actually a pretty simple feat. Trust me when I say, it can get very scary very quickly. And after you're all done putting in tons and tons of lands, you can just drop Kamal down and have a heyday winning the game. Avenger of Zendikar also gets very insane for the same reason. Primeval Titan puts you way ahead, but is a huge target for your opponent's control magic, so watch out for that. Speaking of big targets, Raphaelos Llanowar Emissary is insane in this deck, with potential turn 3 Titan plays. There's a reason he's banned as an EDH general, just saying. Palaka Worm is one of your only 2 sources of life gain, and as an added bonus, he draws you cards. Pretty good. While you're at it, Regal Force is a force to be reckoned with in the digging department, while Kozilek stomps on in and draws you a few more cards. Steel Hulkite is one of the best ways to wreck your opponent's board positions, and while you're at it, why don't you blow away some more permanents with Terastodon? And finally, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. Mr. Robot, you have been outclassed. With majority 32 cards in the deck, the non-creature spells really make Azusa roll. Sensei's Divining Top has proven itself time and time again that it is the ultimate draw fixer. Don't get caught too long without one of these. Crystal Ball's ability to put cards on the bottom of the deck runs great alongside Sensei's Divining Top. Getting early threats out is a must for this deck, so Mana Vault and Soul Ring do beautifully. Cloudstone Curio is a great way to gain some serious card advantage by looping Eternal Witness and Acidic Slime. Horn of Greed is another card that gives your opponents cards, but it's highly unlikely that your opponents will be playing as many lands as you will be per turn. In accordance with Winding Canyons, Lightning Greaves gives you hasty fatties as well as helps protect Azusa. Loxodon Warhammer may seem like overkill in a deck with such huge creatures, but life gain is a must in Azusa since green can't really clear the board too often. Court of Calling, Tooth and Nail, Green Sun Zenith, Primal Command, and Planar Portal serve as tutors, Zenith and Portal being reusable ones. Deglamor is instant speed removal for those pesky indestructible artifacts. Need to blow some permanents out of the way? Desert Twister and Beast Within do a pretty good job. Why yes, Wizards, I would love to have a green instant speed Vindicate that gives them a cute 3/3. Thank you very much. Tower of Calamities can kill pretty much everything in the format that isn't indestructible, while Tower of Fortunes is surprisingly affordable in this deck. Oblivion Stone and All Is Dust serve as the only sweepers in the deck, and they always come in handy. Regrowth is an amazingly high-quality card in EDH and is a green staple, while Restock keeps the creatures you need alive. Life from the Loam may seem weak in a deck with so many basics, but there are enough important non-basic lands to make this card very playable. Garruk equals redundancy. The more overruns, the better. Mimic Vat keeps your dudes constantly on the field, while Gaia's Touch takes Azusa's place when she just costs way too much from continuous recasting. Dudes always die, so why not capitalize on it and play a Skull Clamp, a card that breaks every format since it was printed? There comes a point where you don't want to draw any more lands, or you want to draw a bunch more. Abundance is good at both. Genesis Wave makes for stupid awesome turns. Ever wanted to do it for 18? Well, now you can. Memory Jar is a card that just feels unfair no matter how you play it, especially in a deck that can cast pretty much everything it draws. Crucible of Worlds is in itself a win condition with Azusa and Strip Mine. That is, if you're cool with land destruction and everything. And finally, Greater Good is ridiculously broken in a deck that suffers from mass removal. Have fun drawing 17 cards after someone decides to Wrath your Avenger away. Time for some cool card interactions. As I stated before, Greater Good plus anything worth sacrificing to it draws you a ton of cards, but look at it a little bit deeper than that. You'll be using Greater Good as a way to evade control magic, mass removal, and other harmful effects to your creatures, hopefully digging up another threat. A lesser known strategy is to attempt to dig up an Eldrazi such as Ulamog and pitch it in order to either evade anything that targets your graveyard or to shuffle your threats back into your library. Having Greater Good or another sacrifice outlet, plus Eye of Ugin, allows for repeated Eldrazi every turn as well. Now you've seen all the awesome cards of the deck, but maybe you're wondering how the deck is supposed to play. The strategy of this deck can be broken down into 4 stages. Stage 1, Ramp. The best strategy of this deck is to mulligan any hand with too many lands. Normally keep one good non-land card, something with a bit of utility, not a dude that you won't be able to cast until turn 8, and try to draw into more lands. The earlier in the game you play a threat, the more threatening it is. Stage 2, Cast Threats. Seriously, play dudes, turn them sideways as early as possible. Stage 3, Interact with other players. This is often hard to do, as this deck involves what is mostly gold fishing. But eventually you will have to look up from counting lands and playing stuff to see what's going on with the rest of the table. This normally happens when they start playing more lands and catching up with you. Stage 4, Try to win the game. We say try because this deck's biggest weakness is that it runs out of steam. The important thing to do is not to get overextended. That seems obvious, but unless this deck has some sort of engine to recover, like Greater Good or Skull Clamp, you might lose the game to a Wrath effect. That makes this deck a great exercise in simply playing the game patiently. Play every turn like you won't untap with the board state you have. Spend resources wisely. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of this deck? Why should I or should I not play Azusa? Well, the deck is more resilient than you'd expect a green deck to be. It has extreme explosive power. Azusa puts you miles ahead of everyone else in the early game. There are bombs everywhere. Because of Azusa, the deck loses the need for any smaller utility cards. Instead, its utility comes mostly on bigger creatures, big enough to win the game on their own. You should play this deck if you love Ramp, you like doing stuff early in the game when other people are setting up, you like Eldrazi, you like big spells like Avenger of Zendikar and Tooth and Nail, and you like the challenge of playing a monocolor deck and all the weakness that entails. The weaknesses of a deck like this is that it runs out of steam if you aren't careful, and sometimes if you are. People steal your creatures. Primeval Titan is every blue and black player's favorite 101st card. People who play lots of Wraths or counter magic, you don't run enough threats to overcome that. You shouldn't play this deck if you dislike ramp, you dislike decks that trade reliability for explosiveness, you dislike big bombs and would rather play a deck full of utility dudes, if you love counter magic and spot removal, if you dislike monocolored decks and would rather patch up holes in the color pie by playing multicolored decks, or if you dislike decks that rely on their general. Well, that is Azusa Lost But Seeking. Thanks to Brianne Manriquez for sharing her deck with us, and I hope that this might inspire you to try out a mono-green deck of your own. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Other 99. I'm Carson Perry. Thanks for watching.